Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the CoinGeek Weekly Livestream. I am your host, Mr. Kurt Workert Jr., rocking live from South Florida. This is an entirely South Florida produced episode, as we have one Mr. Alex Vidal behind the keyboard, the DJ booth. I think he's going to be spinning a little bit of some background music, which, oh yeah, I hear it. It's good. We're there. So everybody, if you could like, subscribe, hit the alert bell, let everybody know that we are live on the air. We would love to take your questions, comments, blessings, curses, scrapes, gripes, or gropes. You can please put them directly in the troll box and direct all your friends, your relatives, maybe even your enemies over to the show and let them know that we are live and would love to talk to you. Our guest today is supposed to be one Ryan Hawkos, but I haven't seen him in the box yet, so Mr. Vidal, let me know if he is a show or a no-show. This kind of thing happens. We understand scheduling conflicts and all that. Oh, good, he's here. We're gonna make it, everybody. WGMI. So, if you are watching live, I want to thank you for watching live, and also, if you're looking for something else to do with your time, I posted an article today, published exclusively at CoinGeek.com about the closing of Twetch and kind of the unrolling of the sort of Relay X run paradigm and kind of like the staples of yesteryear. So, 5 years ago, those were the biggest things in Bitcoin, really. They were the exciting things. They were the tools that showed people what Bitcoin could do. I was a big fan. I was one of the first users of both platforms. I really liked both things. I was a big advocate for run tokens and also all my twonks. For a long time, I had a profile picture that was a mash-up of my based apes and my what did they call the sunrise motif thing that was going on. Really, really cool stuff. I was a big fan. But, as it's been said, all great things come to an end. Eventually, I can actually see my ceiling fan reflections spinning on my head. It's amazing. So let your friends know that not only am I bald, but also reflective for your enjoyment, everybody. So back to what's going on with Twetch here. So Twetch wrapped up. Part of the reason is just timing. More than anything, it's probably timing, and the problems with BSV, given that they are a social network and they are intimately impacted by the social pressures of the blockchain economy, and so they also had a couple of scalability things, relying and leaning on APIs that were themselves not scalable, but they also did a couple things really, really well. Well, they did many things really well, actually. I think the marketing and the sort of cultural management and really capturing the fire of the zeitgeist, like that was huge. That was a really big, important thing that they did really, really well, both with the concept of their social network and also kind of understanding the right way to sort of mint NFTs and really foment the culture to get into the art that was being produced by people. So Twetch was kind of spawning its own culture for a little while, and that's a really good indicator for how important and just how special they were at their peak. Now that's going back like 2 or 3 years ago at this point, but I will miss the heyday at Twetch very, very much. Here's a really cool thing, and this is what my article's about. I start to talk about in the article some things that we can do to make some really, really cool stuff happen. All Twetches are compliant with a concept called Magic Attribute Protocol. So if you want to learn about what Magic Attribute Protocol is, you can go to map.sv. Now that website is wrecked, okay? Hasn't been updated in probably 4 or 5 years, but the tools, they work really, really well. So Magic Attribute Protocol is basically a way to send information over Bitcoin using zero-sat outputs, and ultimately you can display that information any way that you can. Now, bitcoinschema.org is its whole own universe of ideas for, hey, if you just design things in compliance with this concept, they become universal, okay? Now, it's those things that inspired the creation of one-sat ordinals. So one-sat ordinals is in compliance with things like Bitcoin attestation protocol or author identity protocol or the magic attribute protocol. So BAP, AIP, MAP, and various other things. Now, here's where this gets really cool, especially with what's going on over at the Panda Wallet / Yours Wallet team, and ultimately in sort of collusion. I think collusion implies something nefarious, but in association with the One Sat Ordinals team, is that if you can export your Twetch keys and put them into Yours Wallet, and then somebody builds a client that utilizes things like Magic Attribute Protocol, then in theory, you should be able to have all of your twonks, your eggs, your... did the Nakamoto cars ever come out? I definitely had a bunch of based apes. In fact, in the founding of Gorilla Pool, we actually consolidated some of our ape NFTs into the treasury of the company. So, I mean, we were really big fans of the twonks. Okay. So people, developers, anybody out there, this is the way forward. Okay. So learn how to use onesatordinals.com stuff. There is a wallet integrated into there fundamentally. There's also Yours Wallet, which works really, really well as a browser extension and is a very powerful tool. It's also being worked on by some people who I know and respect to bring things up rapidly. Now, if somebody can build a client that utilizes Magic Attribute Protocol and the other aspects of BitcoinSchema.org, we can resurrect not just Twetch, but we can resurrect everything you ever did on Twetch and RelayX and all these other places, but resurrect them as open protocols for everybody. No more walled gardens. Everything's available everywhere. It's a global database, all powered by BSV. Okay, that's the dream. It's the dream I've been pushing people toward for 5, 6, 7 years now. And ultimately, this is our opportunity. So I'm going to stop talking, go read the article, and then by all means, make friends with and reach out to the One Set Ordinals team and the Yours Wallet team and all that for some organization. We're going to play an ad, and then we're going to come back with Ryan Hawkos from VX Tech. We're going to talk about all the stuff going on with them, and they are actually a really exciting group of people. First of all, I'm friends with Zach and Justin. Like, I consider them pals on top of being colleagues that I like to work with. But Ryan is one of who I've only sort of met casually, and we're going to have to play a little bit of catch up. So let's get that ad queued up, and Mr. Vidal, when I say we'll be right back, that's when you play the ad, okay? So we're going to try to do this really professionally, okay, everybody? So take it in, and we'll be right back.
BSV is more than another chaotic commodity craze. BSV blockchain can do more than just be a crypto investment. It can help you get more out of your games, share more of your art. BSV makes more things possible.
Welcome back. Ryan, how you doing, sir?
Good.
Ooh.
Connection
seems, but I do hear you, but it seemed to partially freeze there for a moment. You look like your resolution. Are you in a place with good Wi-Fi?
So I'm not quite sure if that counts as
good
Wi-Fi.
It doesn't look like it.
Or
is there any way you can? Is there any way you can plug in? Yeah, no. The connection's pretty rough. Is there any way we can get to a better connection, or is that a no-go?
It'd probably need a few minutes. But...
We could do something for a couple minutes here.
Oh, that bad, huh? Okay.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you're difficult to see. I don't know if you see me very well, but
maybe we should try.
Seems like the audio may have cleaned up. Let's try to talk for like 2 minutes here, and if it's too choppy, we'll work on a pivot. So we can start with the introduction a little bit then. Ryan, what do you do at VX Tech? Like I said in the intro, I know Zach and Justin pretty well, but I've only heard of you. I don't recall if we've ever met. We may have met briefly. So let me know what you're up to. What do you do? What's the job like the day-to-day at VX Tech? And yeah, we'll start there.
Yeah, well, great, Kurt. I don't think South Florida wants to visit Zach, but sadly couldn't make it to the Bitcoin meetups you guys have about you and the fun times you guys have. What I do at VX Technology is everything, right? I'm wearing a lot of hats with Zach and Justin, working for them. They're both their right-hand mans. So I do operations. My company I've been running internally, as well as business development and making dev team as well, just kind of keeping the whole show going.
Operations is key. I'm still struggling to hear you. It's pretty choppy. Mr. Vidal, I don't know if this is maybe a me problem or a Ryan problem or a stream related problem, but maybe we can double check here. So yeah. Okay, choppy on his end. Maybe we take 2 or 3 minutes here and see if you can get an Ethernet cable or get a better connection.
Yep, I'll give it a shot.
All right, let's do that. All right, Mr. Vidal, let's cut back to me talking about whatever I want to talk about for a few minutes here. We can drop Ryan off the stream here. So, do we have any questions, comments, blessings, cursings, grapes, gripes, grubs, anything anybody wants to ask maybe more generically about? Are we going to make it? Oh man. So first of all, in my opinion, if we can survive the Kregening, we can survive anything, right? So there were a lot of people out there, both like pro Craig and anti Craig, both of which are a little culty, who seem to think that all of this revolves, by Craig, for Craig, and to the mere pleasure or displeasure of Craig as it is. But I have always sort of fundamentally disagreed here. I've told people for got to be since 2018, like, look, guys, Craig and Calvin are not here to make you rich. They're not into the pumpamentals. They really don't seem to give a rat's about competing on the tokenomics aspects of things like Ethereum and some of these other places where there's been all these projects that are making people easy money. They don't care about that. They don't care about pumping whatever, aside from 2 or 3 comments ever that have been made by people like Craig or Calvin. They're not really talking about number go up and that kind of thing. Now, that's all for better or worse, right? I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing personally. So, yeah. So, anyways, since that is the sum total, and now Craig has had his the whole trial thing. We did the whole Craig hero arc, villain arc, court arc, and sans some kind of an appeal or something. I think this is like, we're pretty donezo here. We're still here, man. The blocks are still getting mined. Gorilla Pool's still mining blocks. So is Tal. There's another couple of people that are coming into the space that are mining blocks and doing interesting things. I was talking about the all the stuff that we can be doing to revive what I think was the best era in BSV, which was when things like Twetch and Relay X and stuff were brand new. And so I think we're gonna make it, but it's certainly going to be a rocky road. Our enemies are still trying to lick our tears and that kind of thing, because they think this is all just a thing about Craig, and it's not a thing about Craig. It really never has been. Ultimately, BSV exists to be that sort of global data ledger. And so if a blockchain matters at all, I've said this for years now, if blockchains matter, BSV matters the most. And if BSV fails, every blockchain will fail eventually, because they don't solve for a real problem if BSV isn't the best, simply because of the fact that it's the most scalable, reliable, etc. So we are organizing a little bit here. Ryan does not have more simple access to high-speed internet. I guess they're having Wi-Fi issues. So we're going to he sounds like a recording from Nextel. That's true. I remember those damn Nextel phones, and I thought they were cool for the first 3 months they existed, and then I noticed how much the users of Nextel really struggled to make that happen. So Ryan's gonna try to add a photo in. We're gonna try to do audio only, so we still get this interview in, but ultimately we're gonna be working on it, man. This is how live media goes. So how is Teranode going? So very, very interestingly, there was a test, or there has been a test going on for something like 3 months, right? I think they were doing 3 nodes across 3 data centers in order to do this whole Teranode testnet, the screenshots of which have been circulating all over the internet for some time. All of that was very successful. And then somebody pointed out, like, hey, FYI, like, big metrics companies like Gartner and some of these other people really want to see a 6 node test when they do anything like that. And then, so basically it was like, all right, should we do 6 nodes in a system? And they ran the test, and it ran for, I don't even know, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever. No problems, no death, no, terrible forking problems or whatever else. Everything came out really successfully. And so that was a quite successful test. And then also, I actually ended up just having a meeting with Siggy and a couple other people from the Teranode team just the other day, because there is a whole thing about the Golang SDK that's being worked on. And then Teranode is also written in Go. And then Gorilla Pool is doing all kinds of stuff like related to, mining using Go and script validation and all this other thing. So basically everybody who's involved in using Golang in the BSV space is all sort of trying to work together to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts. And so I get to have a pretty good sit down with the guys from the Teranode team to talk about, like, hey, here's what we're doing, here's what you're doing, here's all the ways that we can make this all work. So Mr. Hawkos, welcome back to the show. Sorry, about technical difficulties. That's how it goes sometimes. But how are we doing?
Sorry about these tech issues. WeWork is, as we all know, their story at this point.
Yeah, the greatest startup that ever existed. Yeah. All right. So let's get back to the story here. Operations at VX Tech, as well as being personal assistants to Zach and Justin. How did you guys all hook up? I know Zach and Justin are old friends, as kind of the premise of them working together. Are you another old friend, or were you somebody they went and scooped out of Harvard or Yale or something to bring you onto the team?
Yeah, great question. So, though I am in Boston now, I was initially at the, and I was doing a study abroad program during COVID. So I was still in DC for an international trade firm, and they were pursuing some mining contracts. So I was pretty involved with that, and looking at that, there was kind of a few options to continue my career and do something internationally. And to join the Peace Corps, I decided to kind of turn against that and jump into something which is blockchain technology, and got connected to Justin through. And I ended up joining as an intern. I really started from the bottom and operations, and so it's been great, and I've built some great friendships.
Oh, it's really cool. Well, especially going straight from university and things like Peace Corps. I've known a few people that joined Peace Corps for all kinds of reasons, and then have then pivoted to business, realizing like I might not be cut out for this part of the thing. I'm gonna go into business and try to pivot out. So thinking about VX Pass or VX Tech, the overall company and what you guys do, I have been super bullish on Zach as a person, because I know his work ethic, and I know his grand vision and his values all align in that he has a valuable vision, and he also has a work ethic. And those are two things that I don't often find in a developer founder. Most developers are either quite visionary or they're quite motivated, but they don't tend to be the same person. And so you get your startups that decide, you know what, I'm not really about the business. I'm about making money being a dev, or, you know, in the blockchain space, you know, some kind of like, hey, we're going to build some kind of a product or a thing that is ultimately a rug pull opportunity. But Zach has focused on business in such a way that he is good at client acquisition, and that is not something we've seen almost anywhere. I think that's a little bit, you know, credit to Justin, and also just kind of hiring the right people to do client acquisition and things. But from a company standpoint, I can think of, I don't know, 100 startups in the blockchain space that had a grand idea. Shoot, I can probably think of 1,000 companies that had a grand idea but never actually implemented anything other than a website. So can you talk a little bit about a couple of your successes? I know you have clients in Africa. I know there's some relationship going on with like the Philadelphia Police Department. Can you color those in a little bit for me? And then also let me know if there are any clients that you're proud of that maybe we haven't heard about yet.
Yeah, thanks, Kurt. Zach has been a wonderful innovator as well as teacher for me. I've learned a lot about blockchain and the BSV space. Zach, and he's been really developmental, not only on our dev business side as well. I believe you, Kurt, actually helped Zach clients right now. We're working with kind of our main education has actually been over in Nigeria, kind of tying it back to that international.
Yep.
With that, we've done education credentials. So that was a product, AlphaDAP, which is the kind of enterprise software for blockchain technology in ways that they really haven't before at scale. And that program of politics, policy, and governance in Nigeria, I think Zach's talked to you about that as well on the show. I can watch that old episode with Zach Wiener if you get a chance. That was a really just released the press recently with the SPPG, as well as with that whole program, Sterling Bank. They just dropped their press today, actually. So we'll have technologies, LinkedIn and Twitter. So pop over there to check those out. Cool. Mentioned the Philadelphia Police Department. That is a project that we've been going for a while of concept to put important records on chain, because that's what blockchain, right? So rather than just moving money around and transacting in that way, we can also store either privately or publicly. So with the case with the Philadelphia Police Department, initiative to store some of their homicide shooting information on chain, which is actually something not Philadelphia have had problems with in the past, where they've manipulated their records, and that's something you can't do on blockchain.
Yep.
So those are our kind of two tangible. Right now, we're in talks with a few other partners about some very, very interesting that we're building out, as well as expanding in the education space, working on some math. I don't think I can talk about it on the show here today, but you'll have to get us on in a few months.
Yeah. So cool, actually, speaking of which, the audio is still really choppy, and I don't want to give a disservice to you or VX or the listeners, but I feel like we're missing about 15% of what you're saying. So I am going to make the executive decision live on the air. Let's change the show format to an Ask Me Anything. Ryan, I would love to have you back in, I think we've got probably open slots that start again in like 2 or 3 weeks, because we typically book about 2 weeks out in advance. I would love to have you back in mid-July or something when we have our internet connections and stuff straightened out. Is that cool with you? Can we make that work?
We did copy on my end as well. I heard about half that, so I think that's a good call to pull this again. Live stream just serendipity and how things
Sure.
work here with.
No, that's live media. So is what it is. Ryan, thank you. We will have you back in a few weeks here. The first possible opening that we can get you on. So let's cut you loose, and thank you. No hard feelings. We'll make it work as soon as possible. Mr. Vidal, let's pivot hard here to an Ask Me Anything show, and let's start bringing in some more questions generically about Bitcoin. Gavin, what's up? Hello, can I comment on this line? Yes, you can. You can comment. In fact, you just did. So let's keep the comments flowing. I would love more comments, more questions. When Latif, yes. So we also had a scheduling conflict with Mr. Latif. We are working on getting him back. He's a guy that runs a pretty tight schedule himself. So we're it's probably going to put us. Actually, I'll make a personal announcement. I know some people are probably following, but my third child is due not in the very immediate future, but I'm supposed to have a new baby in about 3.5 weeks here. So there is a possibility at any point in the next 3 weeks that I'm going to need to take a week off. That week may bridge 2 shows, like that kind of thing. So I'm going to have a little bit of a spotty schedule too. So we have not been booking sort of high profile or VIP guests during this window, because I probably I don't know when I'm going to have to cancel on them, but I am going to have to cancel on them at some point. So so our calendar is a soft calendar for the moment, but come into July, we'll start to ramp things back up. Hopefully my child will be a good sleeper and I won't look like a freaking nightmare like I have in past seasons. So we'll get it figured out. Basically, announcements to come. I'll probably post about it on X when I'm at the hospital and that kind of thing. But we'll get it figured out. I promise you. The show will go on, but life comes first. Being Not Afraid CEO, what is happening with Teranode? Seems down for the last 10 days or so. So it's a test net. So by purpose, it goes down. It's not always being publicly broadcast. Partially, it was a pivot over to showing the 6 distributed node system. He actually showed us the map. They were, I don't recall any of the countries, but they were like worldwide. It was like North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia. In order to make sure that in very wide spanning distributed consensus that this would all work. And it was a success. Everything worked really, really well up into, I don't remember the numbers in it. I forget if it's 1 million or 2 million or whatever's going on. It was, I think he said they were just shy of 1 trillion total transactions across the whole test. And then because it's a test net, you then reset it. But we also talked a little bit about what the test net. So there is a BSV test net, a public one that you can mine. In fact, Gorilla Pool is one of the only miners. We are constantly 51% attacking the BSV test net over at Gorilla Pool, and you can mine on it if you want to. You can spin up a node. You can do all kinds of things with it. So at some point, the global public BSV test net will have Teranodes on it because it's public, right? So it's not just the okay, the 3 guys we trust spun up nodes in AWS. It'll be like, hey man, anybody can spin up a thing in anything that they want. It can be run out of, Jack Lou's garage or whatever. And ultimately you can play with testnet with your Teranode on the public testnet at some point, because that's kind of the next step before making it go live on LiveNet. So that's where it's going to be. Let's continue to take the questions. If you have questions or comments or things you'd like to know, I don't care how spicy they are. I will take the spicy questions. Alex, maybe we should even encourage the spicy questions on Only Kurtz, the CoinGeek Weekly Livestream. Do you know what the bandwidth size of the pipes are between the 3 locations in the Teranode test? They are like this friggin' big, okay? Like my head could fit straight through there like you wouldn't believe. That's what they're telling me. That is the scientific measurement of the Teranode pipes. Thank you for asking. Good question. Next one, please. As we get to the halfway point in the show, it's about 2:30, and we would be very happy to take more of your questions. Are you doing anything with the royal family in Nigeria? Oh, here we go. It's Dave Taylor. I have a large amount of wealth tied up in their international financing. So Dave, for those of you who don't know, is kind of an old friend. We're internet friends. We've never met in person, but we have been internet friends for at least a decade at this point. And he is one of the most sarcastic, but not in a mean way, like just goofy puns and stories and all this nonsense. But Dave is a university professor who has me come speak every once in a while to his students. I won't out where he's a teacher, but I get to talk to his guys about Bitcoin and other stuff, and it's a pretty good time. So, Dave, thank you for your question and sending prayers that you get any of that wealth back from the Nigerian royal family. Let's take another one. John Kulesha. I'm gonna guess that's Polish, but I could be wrong. The big block versus small block debate feels like the Mac versus Windows debate. I agree, actually. So it is a lot about flavor of like what do you value in an operating system. It's actually a lot less. It's funny, going back 20 years ago, this was a huge thing. Like there were large differences in like user experience and user interface. I think 20 years ago it probably puts us in the Windows XP era, like early Windows XP, maybe people using Windows 2000 versus the Mac OS, OS 9 probably. I was probably using OS 9 in high school, I think. So yeah. So if we go back 20 years, there were huge differences in user interface, but over time they've sort of gradually made their way closer and closer together because people start to realize like, hey, this concept just works to a point where it should have been obvious 10 years ago, but it's definitely obvious now. And so we're all going to sort of head that direction. Where I think that is a bad example is in the fact that they are not operating systems, but they are networks. So the way I see it is a little bit, I see BTC sort of small block Bitcoin argument as a little more like your kind of, anyone can join. It's kind of like ham radio. Okay. So that's your thing. Like you need to be pretty nerdy to make it work. It's not that hard, but the upfront, like the kind of person that's going to do it and do it well is a very specific person. They look a certain way, they dress a certain way, they talk a certain way. They have, very typically they have certain political values. They're doing it for reasons that a lot of people are just kind of like, that's a real thing. Like, so it's a very niche subculture, right? This is your hardline small blocker. That's ignoring all of the people in the world who just think Bitcoin, BTC, whatever. Like there's a lot of very normal people that like BTC, Bitcoin, because they're in it to make a little bit of money. They vaguely know something about Bitcoin, and so they jumped in. But I'm talking about the kind of people that are going to have an intelligent discussion about small blocks versus big blocks. Your small blocker, I will create that analog to ham radio operators, which are people I respect, by the way. And also, like, I understand the arguments in small block BTC, like run your own node, that kind of thing. Like, I'm a critic. I disagree fundamentally with the sort of the long tail economics of it, but I understand why you want to do it. Like, I get the decentralization argument. I get the, broadly distributed and run your own node and, cypherpunk thing, right? So this is all something that, again, I also respect about ham radio while being somebody who does not himself broadcast or use ham radio equipment. Your big blocker on the other side is more your, progressive, entrepreneurial, trying to push forward the technology for not just the sake of the technology, but the technology for the sake of the businesses that it enables. So this is my situation. I look at Bitcoin and say, wow, imagine the disruptive companies that I could build if I had a high speed, high availability, high reliability Bitcoin network that had sub-cent fees, whether there were 10 people using it or 1 billion people using it. So for me, I'm thinking all this stuff. So this is your ham radio versus your sort of, oh my God, we need to lay fiber everywhere because we need to enable so this is like your broadband I don't even know what a good example would be. Like maybe your Verizon or you know, somebody trying to say like, hey, we're going to invest billions into all this stuff that people aren't going to use yet. And everyone's going to say we're crazy, but eventually people are going to use our extremely high speed network because they want to do business with each other. So those I think are the differences, but ultimately, you know, whoever actually gives the most people what they're actually demanding over time, that's who's going to win. And the way I see it right now is it still is not clear. Now I know the BTC people, you know, the market has decided and whatever, but the fact is the market is always deciding. And truly, people, they are interested in doing big, cool things on Bitcoin. Like, look at ordinals. Look at what has happened in the ordinal space and with bitmaps and all the, you know, there's 5 or 6 different interesting ways to inscribe things that allow you to do second order effect cool stuff. But then they get suppressed back down by, again, this week, we've seen $50 per transaction fees on BTC, and BTC is pushing away business opportunity. And the way I see it is that sucks. But if people continue to demand, BTC might make its way to be a little bit more like BSV, like raise the block side, open up some of the script. You're like, we're starting to see people demanding OpCat, for example, on their BTC, you know, and BSV, it's going to be the same kind of thing. Like, hey, well, like we need to actually compete. And ultimately the consumer wins if both chains are competing honestly with each other rather than just rhetorically with each other, which I just find like pretty exhausting at this point. So next question, please. Hello, Casey. How are you? You're looking well in your profile picture. So I hope you're doing well IRL as well. Brian Grubbs, where is BSV in comparison to other blockchains with TPS? It seems they don't include BSV when you Google it. No, they certainly do not. And part of that is just political, right? It's like, you know, if you ask people in the Western Hemisphere, like, how did we win World War II? And they're going to talk about like, well, the Americans and the British, they did all these things and they invaded Normandy and they used the Air Force and, you know. But if you ask the Eastern Hemisphere, they're going to be like, it was Russia. Russia threw 10 million Russian peasants at it with Mosin Nagant rifles and like basically starved everybody to death by just continuing to throw hordes of people at the problem, right? So it's political. So when you ask, what's the fastest blockchain? First of all, fast is kind of the wrong metric. So transactions per second is an okay way to measure blockchain performance, but it's the reason why people talk about like, well, what about settlement time? And is it actually a fast thing if it's not truly settled? And you know, so you get into the weeds really, really fast. Now, you have things like Solana, which is a blockchain, sort of permissioned. They actually just announced this week that like all of the validator nodes are like chosen validator nodes. So it's a little bit like, is it a public blockchain anymore? And then you have your ones that aren't blockchains at all, your sort of Hedera hash graph or your, you know, that kind of thing, which is not really creating a blockchain. And then you have something like BSV, which should be really easy for people to understand because it's Bitcoin fundamentally, but you know, the politics aside, you know, something like Solana, here's where the math gets really, really fuzzy. Solana claims to be able to do something like 65,000 transactions per second. And it kind of does. Okay. The problem is that some absurdly high number of those transactions are about finding consensus, like to the tune of like 85%. So if you take 65,000 TPS, you hack 85% of those off because those are just about finding consensus. And so you're left with that remainder, you know, 15% or whatever the number actually is that are for transactions of real people sending stuff back and forth. I'm not doing all that math in my head as to how many that is, but that's actually not that many transactions per second. But it doesn't really matter because perception is reality to these people. Now in BSV, you have the same kind of thing. Like you can take the biggest block that was ever mined. Okay, how many transactions were in it? And then figure, okay, what was the block time? Was it 9 minutes and 50 seconds or was it 12 minutes and, you know, whatever? And then you just divide that out into, okay, how many seconds, how many transactions? I don't know, 4,000 or 6,000 transactions per second live on mainnet, right? I think it's fair to say that BSV, as it stands, the SV node implementation of Bitcoin is capable of something like 10 or 15,000 TPS, as long as everything on the network is running swimmingly. Everything's well connected. The transactions aren't particularly difficult to process. They're not complex tokens. They're not, large, whatever. So if we have like a utopian pile of transactions to just sort of blast through the network, it's probably good for 10 or 15K right now as it stands. Fast forward, if you optimize all kinds of things in the SV node software, or when we start to get into the Teranode space or whatever else, it looks like that within the next 12 to 18 months, we probably will be able to, just like on a yawner of a day, do 500,000 transactions per second, no matter how weird or complicated or unorthodox they are. And that's incredible. That's orders of magnitude faster than the second fastest blockchain in existence anywhere. So TPS is hard because, as you can see, I've been talking about it for 10 minutes now. And we're still kind of like, well, then there's this edge case or this one, or what if it's this and what if it's that, and just like it gets absurd really quickly. So, but people don't talk about BSV because they think we're kidding. And that's how that cookie crumbles. What's the deal regarding Binance and Kraken being sued for delisting BSV? Plain and simple, it's that. It's a class action lawsuit based in the UK. I think I probably have to say that I am one of the people that was brought in to sort of consult about the happenings, the history of it. So the BSV, what is it called? It's BSV claims, I think, is the LTD UK, whatever. Like, it's got like a UK corporate structure. They basically looked at the situation. It's some real world like lawyers and everybody there's a lord, but it's sort of like, imagine the kind of person that used to work in the Senate in the US and now they work for regulators and that kind of thing. So there's a couple of guys. And ultimately, it's like 5 or 6 people that have looked at the situation with lawyers and said, hey, there's at least an argument to be made that people who are in the BSV space had their ability to sell their BSV taken away by the fact that it was delisted, and that delisting was likely done for reasons that were not just like, well, they're just not getting any volume or whatever else. It was a top 5 coin for a time, and then it was delisted and has been the argument is that it was done in a predatory manner, basically for the purpose of punishing BSV holders, which is illegal in all kinds of jurisdictions. If you make a decision like that harms holders of an asset simply to harm the holders of the asset, then there's an argument to be made that there's a class action settlement that should be made. And so that's kind of the short version of that. And all that to come. The case is currently ongoing. I think there was a hearing. What is today? Tuesday? We had a hearing late last week. So interesting stuff. Binance et al. The defendants are basically saying, well, they had ample opportunity to sell their coins and buy a comparable coin. So why could they have not just done that? And my response is pretty swiftly, what other coins are comparable to BSV? I don't think any look that way. So that's where I'm at with that. Hi, Rachel Brady. How are you? Good afternoon. Thank you for simply reaching out with a kind greeting. It's very nice of you. Thank you. Uncle Josh, what's up, Mr. Face? What are you most excited about after the conference, or maybe what teams like Babbage and sCrypt are doing? Both teams are awesome. I've really come to appreciate those guys. Like, there were guys who, over the last couple of years I've met sort of briefly a couple times, but I've really come to respect the guys from Babbage and sCrypt for having grand vision and the balls to start implementing some of the stuff that they believe in. And so that's pretty cool. As far as, stuff from the conference going forward, man, it's hard because I didn't watch a ton of presentations. I really sort of hung out at my booth a lot when I wasn't personally on stage. But from our standpoint, we had a lot of very interested parties. Your sort of venture capital types, your kind of people who are like, hey, I'm a big blocker, but I've not really wanted to get involved in businesses that already kind of had Calvin's hands in them. So in companies where Calvin was the lead investor, like, they don't want to invest. But hey, we'd love to find some startups in this space that don't currently have any venture capital, and we'd love to be your lead investor and sort of help bring you into the future. We had, I don't even know, I probably talked to 6 or 7 guys that were in that situation, like serious investor types, family office, venture capital guys that were echoing that sort of sentiment, that told me like, hey, this is awesome. That makes me bullish on the technology, which I have always been. I've always said, like, the tech is the thing that's interesting, that enables all the other really cool stuff. And it's not about the personalities, because, you know, people like Calvin and Craig and stuff, they can be abrasive. They're certainly not everybody's cup of tea. And so that's kind of my bullish feedback. I also met a lot of really interesting people from like AWS and Aerospike and Boston Consulting and stuff. And again, everybody will be like, well, aren't those people just paid by other, Calvin extremities to look at stuff? But when you actually sit down and talk to them about implementation, and they're like, man, I'm not going to say who, but I talked to people from 2 organizations who basically said, I always thought blockchain was one of those things that just like blockchain can't, and here's why. But once I really looked at, once they, had somebody from like Teranode team or from somewhere, from among the BSV, sort of tech developer community explain, hey, no, here's what we're actually doing. And then all of a sudden it clicks for them. And they say, holy crap, I have worked in scalable databases for, my whole career, and nobody has ever showed me that blockchain can. And that's the real difference, is that everybody tells you that blockchain can't do this, and blockchain can't do that. Blockchain's just essentially a really slow database. That's what you hear from people. But in reality, blockchain can. And that's what BSV is trying to prove. And when you can catch someone's ear for just long enough to explain why it can, then all of a sudden intelligent people say, oh my gosh, what an opportunity. And so there were a lot of people from companies you would know who were at the London Blockchain Conference saying, man, this is so cool. And I'm like the first person at my company that gets it. And they're excited to seed it into their bigger companies. And so there's a lot of that kind of thing. And so that was pretty exciting. Also, it was just really good to catch up with a lot of people that I haven't seen in a while. So thanks for the question. Nikki Sanders, what are the technical limits of Solana when compared to BSV blockchain? Solana is really unique, actually. So BSV is in a lot of ways a lot like a lot of other blockchains, because it's just a Bitcoin variant. And so there's probably 100 Bitcoin variants that look, 85 to 90% like BSV. And then BSV just has more things turned on and more things opened up, right? So it's not a very unique blockchain in a very deep fundamental sense. It's very unique because of the culture and the desire to push really hard and to do that kind of thing. But Solana is built from the ground up. It's a mix of very interesting database technologies that aren't used in a lot of other places in the blockchain space, but are in like commercial enterprise and that kind of thing. It also comes to consensus in a really bizarre way. It's like a proof of, it's a variation on proof of stake. I forget which thing they call it now, but basically you have your validators that like, hey, we have a certain amount of Solana and this is our level of authority, and therefore consensus comes our direction. The block times are fast. It utilizes a lot of the kind of the conceptual tooling like from the Ethereum space that, hey, think of it as just like one giant operating system. And so it's very easy to program on. The tooling is really good, but ultimately, technical limits. The way I see it, the way that it comes to consensus, the fact that it has to generate this massive amount of transactions just for the sake of coming to consensus, that's its Achilles heel. So when volume gets too high, just like on every other blockchain, you're going to have trouble keeping your nodes in consensus because they're a monolith. They're doing too many things. And this is the fundamental problem that Teranode is seeking to solve. And frankly, nobody has solved this all the way yet. Teranode's not all the way out yet. And until it is, we're still theoretically solving these problems by breaking out every little thing into a microservice that allows the microservice to fail without letting the broader system fail or the network as a whole fail. And that's the real innovation in Teranode. And Solana suffers from that's the same problem really that BTC struggles with. It's just as doing it at, a couple orders of magnitude higher, but it ultimately is, hey, if my node goes down, like the network goes down. And, if everybody was relying on my node, that's it, it's off, right? And we've seen this now. I think there's probably been, I don't know, a dozen times that Solana has just been like off, and like 5 or 6 of those times it has been all the way 100% down and down for days. And so that shows you the technical limits of Solana. Whereas in BSV, if there are 2 nodes left in the whole world, the network should still function the way that it is, quote unquote, supposed to function for people. But that assumes, again, people's experiences with the wallet or with the application. It's not necessarily with the network itself. So sometimes the app you're using might be failing for engineering reasons, and you blame the network. Be like, hey, wasn't BSV supposed to be fast? And it's like, yeah, you're using a bad app and a bad wallet, and it's poorly connected. And, so a lot of these things are perception rather than like some fundamental technical thing too. Next question, please. Also, Alex, let me know how many more questions we have. I see there's kind of a lot of comments. I can speed this up because I see we only have about 7 more minutes in the show. So let's keep banging away. It's Metanet. The next app store like for Bitcoin apps. I don't know. I mean, there's not a Metanet app store right now. There's been people that have tried to create sort of aggregate, application places, but there's not some kind of app store. But that would be a good thing. Ultimately, there's just not that many apps that are up and running and kicking and killing it just yet. But that's something that I think BSV Association right now maintains that sort of thing. And so it would be good for them to make sure they keep an updated list and share that out. But, it's like a lot of things. Like if we're trying to replace the internet, I think we need to take one step back. It's kind of like how in 1999 you get on AOL and you're given the AOL version of the internet, and it kind of teaches you how the internet should work in a safe sort of curated environment. And while that would be a big step back for somebody from 2024 who uses the internet mostly on their phone and just like there's just like sort of open browser and app universe, but I think we kind of need that AOL version of like a Metanet to sort of teach people, okay, here's how you manage your wallet, and here's how a chat app should work, and here's how all these things. That's kind of what I was talking about at the beginning of the show with Bitcoin schema. Like if everything was compliant with Bitcoin schema and everybody's wallets and everybody's everything sort of integrated with that, all of a sudden everything becomes way more, inclusive and recursive, and it's awesome. But it's going to take some work. Next question, please. Why did Jack Lew leave and turn against BSV? Jack, it's funny. I always kind of forget he exists until somebody brings him up. Jack is, I don't know. He's just kind of an interesting character. He was personal friends with CZ from their time working at, what was it? I think it was OKX, where they worked together at some point. So they both were like plucky startup guys, and then CZ turned himself into the richest man in China, and Jack is still Jack. So I can see that sort of giving you that like, hey, I'm gonna have a mental breakdown, and I totally don't blame him for, he's obviously the kind of guy who's got friends who have probably made billions or tens of billions of dollars during a period of time when Jack, was focusing on BSV and essentially didn't make any money. Huge opportunity cost. It's the kind of thing that you have nightmares about. I don't blame him for being salty. I do blame him for, quote unquote, turning against BSV. There's just the attitude. There's just no reason for the negativity is the way I see it. Like, just be a leader. Like what a leader does is they come up with an idea, they push it forward. If it fails, they move on. They don't complain about, well, here's what could have been, here's how it should have been. If I was in charge of everything, it would look like X. It's just kind of like whatever. So either way, I wish Jack well. Me and him don't have particularly good rapport, but I want him to be happy, healthy, wealthy, and wise by some point in the future for his own sake. So I don't know. I whatever. At this point, he's just a guy not doing stuff anymore that I'm paying attention to. So Hope he's well. I blame GM. The token or the concept? That's my real question. Next one, please. Has CSW dropped his appeal? I haven't seen. I think the deadline, I feel like, was yesterday, so I don't know. He's a black box at this point. I'm not getting like PR updates or anything like that. I really don't know. I'm not sure what if anything is like the broader game plan. I don't know. I wish I did. I wish I could report something. I wish I could give you a hint. I have been seeded no hints, and so I do not know. And frankly, that indicates to me that it's probably time for all of us to move on. So that's where I'm at. Have you read Hero Villain? Not yet. It is ordered. It might even be delivered. But like I said, we're preparing for Wookert Baby number 3 coming in the next couple of weeks here. So we've been doing a lot of like reorganizing the rooms and putting away these baby clothes and bringing out these old ones and like rearranging the car seats in the car and preparing the whatever you call the baby bug out bag and all of that kind of stuff. So I will get back to my reading and book review schedule in the near future. Maybe while the wife's in labor, I can sit with sleeping children and read Hero Villain by, we'll see. Why didn't Craig stand on Magna Carta and say that he requires a trial by jury? Craig spoke about this in his last interview. I really like that's a totally valid criticism. Like, why did the case look like it did in that regard? But I can think of a few other major things where it'd be like, why didn't Craig's case look more like this? Why didn't he have Ian Grigg on the stand? Why didn't he bring, like, why weren't there, who knows, 10, 20, 30 other things that were done in this trial to make it run smoother or work more in his favor or set better legal precedent? I don't know. Nobody asked me to consult. Nobody asked my opinion. And I thought that was because I'm just a random guy. But when I saw the way that everything kind of went down, it's a little bit like, I wish I could have pulled some strings. I feel like it would have been better with like the advice of just a guy like me, or really the advice of a lot of people that comment. I don't know. I really don't know why Craig's case looked the way that it did. He has his own reasons. And, I don't know. History's written by those who've hanged heroes. And that's kind of is what it is at this point. It's all Craig's fault for Ryan having a bad connection. Yes. Damn you, Craig. So next one, please. We're coming up on the end of the show rapidly here. How about ICP? Internet computer, same kind of thing. It's a proof of stake blockchain that does a couple of novel things in a couple of novel ways, but is it more scalable than anything else? Not really. Not that I've seen. Most people are not thinking outside the box. ICP is also one of these things that's in a shell company of a shell company. It's controlled by Andreessen Horowitz. And so are things like Polkadot and all these other things. So it's like, it's just one other blockchain that, in my opinion, is kind of a copy paste in a lot of ways, but is marketed differently. I love the way it's marketed. The stuff that ICP is doing from a branding and social and like, this is what blockchain should do. That's great. Technically, can it do any of that? Who knows? I don't know at what scale. I'm not an expert. I don't know exactly when it breaks down, but they're not doing anything particularly special. Gavin asking, super cool that this is broadcasted. Thank you. I love the fact that we stream this on multiple platforms. What do you think of Nexa versus BSV? Is Nexa a blockchain? I don't even know. At this point, how new is it? Where is it from? It sounds like every other blockchain. Give me more info. I don't know what Nexa is. GRT, what's your take? Asking for a friend. GRT, what is GRT? And anybody? Alex, do you know what GRT is? I don't know what GRT is. Next question. BSV should reach out to THORChain and work to have it added to their decks. I agree. THORChain is a pretty cool concept. Technically, again, I don't know how scalable it is, but it's actually a really nice tool. So THORChain's a pretty interesting way to swap coins. So yes, I agree. Good suggestion, John. Hi, Carbon Craft. All right, everybody. We are 1 minute after the top of the hour. I apologize for the technical difficulties. We will have Ryan Hawkos back sometime in the next couple of weeks. I really don't want to schedule him too soon because I feel like I might have to cancel on him. But everybody, thank you for watching. Thank you for your likes, subscriptions, your all the other stuff. It really means a lot. I love that you give me something delightful to do every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please tell your friends. Please share this across the universe and let them know that, like, hey, I know that guy Kurt, and he gives me an honest answer every time I ask a question, because that's what this show's about. That's why I do it live. I want it to be interactive, and I'm glad we got to have an interactive show. I had a good time, everybody. Thank you. Be good to each other. Go out there and do something awesome with your life and your family. Go hug your kids. Go pinch your spouse's tushy, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon, everybody. It has been a real pleasure. And thank you, Alex Vidal, for helping us pivot rapidly on getting the show done with a little bit of a rocky boat here, everybody. So that's it. I'm done. I'm Kurt. Goodbye.
BSV is more than another chaotic commodity craze. BSV blockchain can do more than just be a crypto investment. It can help you get more out of your games, share more of your art. BSV makes more things possible.